So I am overseeing all of the grant programs of the agency, and certainly the Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites program this year. And today I'm going to briefly talk to you about best practices in securing funding, and we'll talk a little bit about also the program itself. But one thing I do want to direct your attention to that I put together, actually the most rock star intern ever put together for you, is a resource sheet. And we will have this on our website with the videos and the PDFs and all this resource information that you will have access to moving forward from today. But this information has the website for this program on there. It also has information about the Indiana Arts Commission newsletter that has opportunities for artists, specifically Arts Eye. I would highly encourage you to sign up for that monthly newsletter. It has job opportunities, it has call for artists, it has grant opportunity announcements. Certainly get on there. It also talks about the Chicago Arts Alliance resource. It has other grant opportunities that may be regional or national in scope that would be of interest to you. Americans for the Arts, as well as the Indianapolis Arts Council, has a lot of great videos that James has actually created with Moriarty Media, like talking about your work, photographing your work, and all those kind of things. So I wanted you to have access to that information. There's also our regional arts partner structure. So in 11 regions in the state, we have an organization that serves as your touchstone. So oftentimes they would be happy to review your grant proposal before you submit it and give you a little bit of feedback. Leverage every resource you can. And certainly if you ever are going to apply to a grant program, be advised that you are more likely to receive funding if you reach out to that grant program manager and ask and receive answers to questions that you may have. So, in any event, the resources are available for you. The grant opportunities, we'll go over that real fast. Tips to writing a successful proposal and a little bit about the program. There is a webinar on the website that will go deep dive into the program. So we'll just kind of do bird's eye view and the quick questions and answers. The individual artist grant program, the deadline for that is generally at the very beginning of February, just for your awareness level. The February of 2018, that program is going to focus on performing arts, musical arts, literary arts. We switch disciplines every year. So in 2019, it'll be open to visual arts. So as an individual artist, you can apply to that program for career development, very specific to how you can propel your career forward. And of course, the other artist program that we have is Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites. So the tips for writing a successful proposal, first and foremost, is read those guidelines. Is your project or one you're thinking of even eligible for funding? What kind of expenses are eligible for funding? And you also want to start early. Go ahead and print the application and read all of the questions, and that will help inform how you even develop your project. And use the criteria rating sheets. With any state agency or federal agency, we have specific criteria that panelists will evaluate the application on. Because as an agency with public funds, all of the applications are vetted by the public through a panel process. And certainly if you have a question, ask the program's manager. Your biggest goal is to make the case for funding. And to make the case for funding, use those evaluation criteria. Make sure that everything relates. If you're gonna have a budget that talks about, has the supplies in there, make sure the supplies relates directly to what you're gonna be doing. There are often cases, but that's not what we see in the budget. So make sure everything pulls together. Avoid jargon and be clear and concise. It doesn't have to be long. It just needs to be clear. Be passionate. I think that's really important. Get the panelists to be excited about your project and what you're doing, but be formal. Don't be too casual, because then the panelists will think you're not respecting the process. And be active over passive. I will. This will happen. rather than maybe, or we're thinking about, or this might be what's going to happen. Be very concerted. This is what you're going to do. Be detailed as you can, so reaching out to those stakeholders in terms of your development of your project is important, because you can include those details, that you work with those individuals, and that's just where the direction is that you're going. When you're coming up with a project, start small and then go bigger. It's better to kind of get the experience, particularly for a first-time project, rather than doing too much at one time, because the panelists start to freak out. They're like, oh my God, they're going to be doing this, 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 this. So be reasonable, because you're also, if you do a big project that has a lot of ramifications on the budget, and if you do get funded, you don't want to hurt yourself in the end. And your resume, make sure it's, include your educational background and any employment or arts activities you've done, like workshops or performances and things like that. If there's one thing I always want people to do, it's to have somebody else read your proposal before you submit it. It's not just for spelling and punctuation errors or grammar, but it's so easy to think that you're very clear. So it's nice to have somebody who's completely uninitiated to what you have done, read it, and provide clarity as to what might be missing or is confusing. Give them the review criteria, have them act as a panelist, and somebody that can really guide you and help you understand some of the pitfalls. Again, those partners might be able to help you with that. For those of you who have applied, how many of you applied to an Arts Commission grant in the past? A couple of you? Okay. So we have a new online system. So we're super excited about it because it doesn't look like DOS anymore. So, it's all about visual communication. So this is our new online system that you'll be accessing through our website. You can see at the top of the page, and it's also on your resource sheet. This provides us an opportunity. You can preview it without having to start a profile, or you can just dive right in and hit apply. But you'll be going through this. Again, it's a $3,000 maximum request, minimum of $500. Is anything you can do to try to put everything in that budget that you can think of is extremely important. I know how hard that is to do, but always be mindful in that direction. The criteria for arts in the parks and historic sites is feasibility, cultural asset and natural environment impact, public benefit and community impact, and artistic quality. And those are equal levels. So a total of a maximum of 100 points that they're going to be scoring your application. So each of those is 25 points. So you're just making the case. You're making the case that you can do what you said you're going to do, that it's not going to adversely impact the environment in any way, and that you've thought through and worked with those folks to assure that. And that means that when you have, a presentation in the park, that you're bringing everything that you need, and you're leaving it just the way you found it. Public benefit and community impact. That is, we want to see these arts dollars go back to the public. And artistic quality, to the level that makes sense in your work, that you will be providing. It's not required, but we highly encourage you to provide artistic documentation. If it's your work or work that you've already conducted, if you've done a similar project in the past, you would want to submit that. This is actually the full review criteria that panelists are going to use to evaluate. I have this document also online for you, so download it, print it out, and use that as your guide as you write that application, and as that individual who reviews it for you, your draft, they can check it out as well. So like I said, we do have that webinar. It will deep dive in, but honestly, I really think a lot of this is pretty straightforward when you get into the application. When you read the guidelines, yeah, there's a lot of detail. Don't freak out. That's because we want to make sure you have all the resources you could possibly need. It doesn't mean that you have to just, go into some forensic level of analysis. It's just there for you. We said it like 20,000 times. Visit that property. Leverage what you have learned today. about engaging the community, about thinking about those audiences. Who is the audience that you want to bring in? Maybe it's an underserved population, maybe it's an elderly population. Make your case and before you get somebody to review that proposal. A quick thing about the historic sites. We'll be working with them for the first time this year. We're pretty excited about that. They may have prices online with regard to renting their facility, but what they ask is that if you're going to do something with them, you reach out to them and you will figure out a price together. It's very different from somebody from the for-profit sector or somebody who wants to have a wedding, as opposed to an artist who's collaborating with these folks to really meaningfully impact an audience together. Those are two completely different elements. So you'll be working with them to figure that out. Now, that is the bird's eye quick overview of best practices in getting a grant. I also have a sheet that has the tips in there for you. If you're the people who like to read from paper, I'm still in that school. I love to have paper. I just throw it in a binder. I'm all about binders. There are like 17 of them in my office. And certainly never hesitate to call me. You can email, but I love to talk on the phone. And 99% of the time, there's always another question. Well, what about this? I'm so proud of you for you getting here. I mean, wow, well done. And thanks so much for coming.